the last few years, many companies have made an effort to reduce gender imbalance in the workplace. What do you think has worked well, and what else can be done to help more?
There definitely is a gender imbalance certainly in my space. I come from the technology space in life sciences, and there's always been an imbalance. There's not enough women in tech, and as a company, our company really pushes hard to make sure that we are looking for more women in that space, because there is a limited candidate pool as well. And if we're going to change that in society, we're going to have to go way back into education. We're going to have to look at how do we make science, technology interesting to girls, and how do I, as a father, encourage my daughter to find that interesting, to be inquisitive about it, to be interested, to look at the challenges that those spaces have in them, and to see that as a possible career as well. So I think we do need to go way back into how we school our children, and what we push. What can companies do around that? I guess looking at scholarships and things like that, looking at how do they change the candidates that they're looking for, and what do they do to ensure that they're getting enough women onto their graduate programs. And maybe there's a real focus that's needed to just say, okay, well, we're driving to get females into this space. I guess as a guy, what I can do, I'm a leader in an organisation, I can call it out if I see those gaps, and I can encourage my recruitment team to come up with a decent candidate pool to make sure I've got a real balance of individuals, looking at gender, race, etc., and making sure that we're getting that diversity. There's lots of data that proves diverse teams are more successful, diverse companies are more successful than those that don't have that diversity. I think one of the key areas that we also need to look at is returners. If you look at, there was some data that was published, I think it was by McKinsey. If you look at female and male starting jobs, it was roughly 50-50 in the science sector. And then as they got further up and further into the career, we see less and less women. And I think some of that is related to going off and having kids. We need to tackle that, and we need to work out how do we encourage people to return, and what do we need to do to ensure that returning is an option.
I think definitely having more women in management positions or positions of power, this really allows the management and the structure itself to carry more empathy for gender parity, because they would have people who come from this background to tell the stories of people from this background. Personally, I got a lot of mentoring from women leaders as well, which has been very helpful. Equally, this is a Kiwi in me coming out, social gatherings that involve people from all demographics. This can be really, really powerful in building rapport and understanding each other.
Some industries and specialisations have greater gender imbalance than others. Should we be trying to reduce this by taking action earlier, i.e. in schools, or in other ways in society outside the workplace? Should this be informal or through more formal political or legal mandates?
I think the first education really starts from families. So it's important that they really try to encourage their children to follow their dreams, their desires, to understand their skills. And the schools should also be supportive in this sense. And instead of making the child feel like trapped in a box of limited choices, they should try to encourage the child to understand what their skills really are, and to follow their desires, whatever they are. And also the government could and should do more in these regards, and help schools implement programs that can show children a variety of options, and instead of focusing only on standard topics at school, also teach the children to learn about themselves, really, to discover what they are made for. I don't think that our children live in a world of gender parity. It very much depends on where you are born. So there is still a lot that we can do. As I said, families and schools really are the first places to start. I'm very optimistic about the future. a lot of change has been done so far, and I think that it's going to be exponential, the improvement in the next few years as the women get to leadership positions. They will also inspire younger children to follow their steps, to follow their dreams. So I think the KPIs and quotas are a starting point. They are important. In an ideal world we wouldn't need them, but as I said, they are a starting point, so the government and companies can really understand what the situation is, where they are, where the gaps are, in what sectors, and they can understand how to take action and try to balance all of these inequalities.
The pharmaceutical industry needs passionate, bright young people coming in to develop the medicines of the future. And so for that, we need to have women going into STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths, and then not only just to come into STEM, but then to advance within it. The ABPI has initiatives in schools and also with the Welsh Chwarae Teg Women's Spy Awards to support women going into STEM, and then as they're in STEM to support their achievements. And it's really important that we make sure that girls and young women have the awareness of the opportunities, but also the support to get into those opportunities and then to develop further once they're there.
Some countries have made greater strides towards gender parity than others, and those taking the lead have often employed different approaches. If you have lived in more than one country, what have you noted about the ways in which governments or societies have approached empowerment of women and gender parity overall? What should other countries copy or avoid?
So I'm Italian. I was born and raised in Milan. Now I live in London. I've been living here for almost a decade now. I live with my wife and my son. My wife is Mexican, so I can give a quick overview of the situation in terms of gender parity among these three countries I just mentioned. So I can say the UK is the most advanced one in terms of gender equality, and so I can make a couple of examples just to show how I found in London, for instance, a very open mentality, I have to say, compared to other experiences that they had in the past in Italy or in Mexico. So for example, my wife felt comfortable to change job. She started in a new company when she was 7 months pregnant, and when I say this to my friends in Italy, they are always very surprised about this openness of her employer to employ somebody, to hire somebody who's 7 months pregnant. Or the fact that here in the UK there is the opportunity to take shared maternity and paternity leave. That's a great advantage. In other countries this is not possible, or there is a lot of pressure from society on the men to go back to work as soon as possible. So this is a very important, very helpful for young families. One element that I think the government should do more is help young families in terms of childcare. So there are initiatives at companies level where they maybe open a nursery inside the company building. So things like this that can help young families to balance their work and so personal lives and childcare are really, really important.
I've lived and worked in a number of different countries and thought it would be helpful to share a couple of reflections with you. In the Netherlands, what struck me was that part-time working, whether it's men or women, can actually work and really did work. As the head of the department moving there, I was initially worried that I wouldn't be able to get my team together or get the work done, but actually it worked. So where it's commonplace and everybody's used to it, it can work. The second reflection is about my time in Sweden, and what I really appreciated there was a recognition that non-work responsibilities and commitments are important, and that people can have those commitments and responsibilities and work, and it comes together. it was also incredibly refreshing when I was there to be able to look round a room full of leaders and not be the only woman or one of a handful of women. I think another reflection there is that the gender and being gender neutral is really endemic, and it's built in from nursery school onwards, so that by the time you get to the boardroom, it's fine. There's an equal number of men and women.
As well as efforts by employers and the government, what can people do to help themselves? What advice would you give to young women looking to progress their career, young men who want to share home responsibilities with their partner, or older women who have either hit a ceiling or are struggling to juggle work, children, and elderly parents?
So I think the most important thing you can do to help your career and yourself is to really take accountability for it. I think that we sometimes get the feeling that, we have to wait for opportunities internally or appraisals to have these discussions about how we should be promoted or next steps or how well we're doing. And I think it's really important to actually take control of that. Your career development is not a passive process. You're very much got to be in the driving seat for that. And I think if I had to give one piece of advice, that would be it. You've got to build a case around about your appraisal time, if that's the way that you're being measured, or even throughout the year. I used to have an inbox folder called Good Stuff in my email. And basically, whenever someone said, or a client said, "the great job," or "that was excellent," then, you start to build this evidence as opposed to turning up fresh and saying, "Okay, great. Yes, so the last year, it went well. Yeah, I seem to have hit that." It should be a business case. You should be, driving that process very much with your manager. And I think one of the other things that's really important is to, network outside of, your organization or the direct department. Speak to other people in the company or outside of the company. But more importantly, build your own network. Hopefully find a mentor, somebody completely independent who can actually give you really good advice that's sound, and they should be more experienced, but they don't have that friendship connection or, part of your family where there's a much more emotional involvement from that perspective. And I think also take your time. I think that, we can be very impatient to charge ahead, but I think it's really important to actually take your time and be open to new opportunities and ideas. Gone are the days that, you joined a company and then every 2 years you got promoted. It's not a linear process anymore. You're moving around in different areas through different organizations or departments internally, while you really learn where your kind of sweet spot is and where you actually want to spend your career itself. And I think that that's something that is, really important to make sure you're driving forward, but giving yourself a bit of a break as well. You don't have to do everything by the end of the first year. Take the learnings, take your times, trust your gut, and, make sure that you're doing something that, even if you don't love it, it really does give you the skills and development, and at least challenges you and motivates you on a daily basis, because I think that's very important.
I think I was quite lucky with a partner that I found in my boyfriend, who's a great believer in gender parity, gender equality, and hugely supports my striving for a successful career and my ambitions. He often consults me, I often consult him on these issues, which is great because it's a really safe environment and we can talk about things, but also learn from each other. Regarding my career progression, one of the biggest things that I need to work on is to not rely on other people's approval or validation, rather to strengthen my self-esteem and believe in myself based on evidence, of course, what I've achieved. But this is, my mind is my biggest limiting factor as well. And this is also something that one of my mentors and I discuss a lot about. She, as a leader in business, is also working on it too, apparently, and she's a killer businesswoman, so I'm trying not to be too harsh on myself in correcting this, but it is definitely something that I need to work on.